mug. I specifically washed this for this video because, well, it's a spooky season and, you know, gotta get in with that content whenever I can.
Disclaimer, hello. I filmed this video on the 11th of October. It is now the 3rd of November. This video is still very honest, talking about a work-life balance, but in the last 3 odd weeks, my work-life situation completely changed, and I had no time to really sit down and edit this video. And I almost thought about not posting it because I was like, well, I've not been able to even balance out my life lately. It kind of feels weird posting something about work-life balance. However, everything I say in this is valid. I literally just took 3 weeks off to balance everything out. So work-life balance is super important. That's why I've not really done anything for the past 3 weeks. And I'm quite behind with editing. I needed to take some time off, give up time to other things that were more important. And I actually do say in this video that it's very important to make sure you are balancing everything out by priority. So yeah, my whole situation changed for the last few weeks. So that's why it's taken me a few weeks to get this video edited, but I am really happy with it. I still think it's a really good video. It's nice and chill, and I would love to do more videos like this. So if you guys like it, then, you know, just let me know. But without further interruption from me, I would like you guys to now watch the video.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. As you can see from the title, I'm going to be talking a bit about work-life balance today. This is actually kind of spurred on by a question I had from one of you guys that was sent to me on Instagram. It was one of those questions that I could not reply to in just a message format. I was like, right, this is a video in itself. But yes, I got this question from one of you guys, one of my subscribers, Smell the Dead Roses. Thank you very much for all of your comments. You are so kind. So she said, I'm in my final year in uni studying TV and multimedia production and doing freelance work on the side and work a normal job too. Would you have any advice on how to balance everything? I'm back 1 week and I'm struggling. I'm maybe not the best person to talk about balance, especially work-life balance. But I do want to talk about it because, you know, that's how we learn from things. And I think that was kind of the purpose of last week's vlog. If you didn't watch that one, you probably should. It's when I first go back to uni and I started feeling a little bit burnt out. And at the end of that video, you can kind of see I'm starting to tail off. I'm getting a bit like, ooh, that was me starting to get a little bit burnt out and needing to take a break. So I did. And I've come back feeling way better. So I feel like I have some advice to share about work-life balance and how to, you know, strive for that. But yeah, this video is going to be pretty chill. I'm literally just going to sip on my coffee once it's at a temperature that I actually drink it at and just chat to you about some advice I have about, you know, work-life balance and maintaining a healthy balance and not getting burnt out to the point of breaking. If you guys have been following and keeping up to date with my more recent life, 2 months ago I quit my part-time job and I went full-time freelance. So this is my job. I am fully self-employed. There is a potential job on the line, but I won't talk about that in this video. But at the purpose of making this video, I am a full-time freelancer, self-employed content creator, doing my digital marketing masters, and I'm very much in charge of my own schedule at the moment, which is great, other than my uni classes. But it's great because I have that freedom and flexibility to work around and create my own work-life balance. But that's because I'm super lucky now. I've worked really hard to get to this point, but it wasn't always this point. For the last 8 years, I've had multiple jobs and I've been in that situation of being a student and having to work a lot and just try and juggle everything. And it's hard. It's really hard. To throw you back to the worst kind of the busiest peak of my career, existence, student life, lack of work-life balance horror was when I was in 3rd year. And in 3rd year, you undertake your placement module. So I went on placement and I was working 5 days a week, 9 to 5. And I had 2 part-time jobs on top of that. One was working in a bar/nightclub and the other one was working at a pharmacy. And on top of that, I was also a freelance photographer. So that time of my life, I was working 80+ hours weeks. And I remember saying it to my boss at my placement and he flipped. He was like, you can't be working like that. You're gonna burn out. And within 3 weeks, I had only been doing that for 3 weeks, I got a really bad chest infection, got really ill. And I had to get signed off work by the doctors for all of my jobs for a week. Yeah, so I know exactly what happens when I get really burnt out. my body just starts to give in, and it's not good. It's funny that I say that my body does that, it gets ill and it gives up, because I'm literally just recovering from being really ill. At the tail end of the studio vlog that I was just mentioning earlier, you can hear I've got like a little bit of a sore throat, and a couple of days after filming that vlog, I was bedridden, I was ill, I couldn't get out of bed, it was awful. I mean, to be fair, it's a combination of like freshers flu and everything opening back and going back to normal, but I was really ill for the second time in 2 months as well, which is kind of ironic because it coincides with me quitting my job and going full-time freelance. But I think it is just because the world is opening back up and everyone's immune systems is already quite low. I'm not saying I was working like flat out, but I wasn't really getting a lot of time to balance everything out because the world was opening back up. There was a lot of things going on in September, a lot of concerts, a lot of gigs. It wasn't COVID though. I'm actually really surprised I didn't get COVID because I was so ill twice. Did PCRs, did blood flows. I just was ill. It happens. But yeah, it's definitely a sign of when I'm getting burnt out is that I'll get really ill. That is when I recognize I need to take a step back and start working on me, like, you know, getting back to like a healthy work-life balance. So that kind of brings me to my tips and tricks and advice I have for you guys on getting a good work-life balance. So one of the things that people will probably say the most is self-care. Self-care is super important and it's like vital for maintaining a work-life balance. And I viewed self-care as taking a day off, sitting and playing Animal Crossing or The Witcher, and at the end of the day, or maybe not even in the end of the day, maybe just a couple of hours into it, I would feel so bad. It was rubbish, like it was awful because I viewed it as me trying to take a step back and take time away from doing my work, but my brain would just overflow with all these thoughts of everything I need to do. Anytime I tried to take any time off, my brain just went to, what are you doing? You have so much that needs to be done right now. Your to-do list is endless. Why do you think you can take time off right now? You need to go do X, Y, and Z right now. Go, go, go. There is no time for any of this. Get back to work. It was not fun. Usually these kind of thoughts would make me spiral and I would start heading into a very like, but I need time off because I'm feeling really like exhausted, but also I can't take time off. I'm self-employed and if I don't do the work, then like, that's it, I'm done. And I would just start thinking I was a failure, I was never going to succeed, this is the end. It was awful. Awful, awful, awful. And that's when I looked into proper ways of dealing with this because obviously typical self-care was not working. And that's when I looked into journaling. Now journaling is kind of a strange one, not everyone will want to do that, but it's a really good way to process feelings, especially feelings of self-doubt, of anxiety, of just sheer not feeling worth it, not feeling good enough, all of that stuff. Just get it out. Just get it out onto paper and it helps you just process everything that might be weighing you down. Kind of like a to-do list. When you write down all the things that are cluttering your brain, it kind of helps you have some clarity and you can kind of read back on some of it and go, okay, I see why I was feeling like this. I hear you, brain, but it's okay. Like, don't stress. I started journaling back in March, April of this year, and I think that's kind of when things were on the approach for opening back up again, so I feel like it kind of ties in with when things start to get busier again. My brain gets a little bit like, and it's just a good way to just chill everything down. And I kind of stopped journaling over the summer because I was feeling good and, you know, everything was going well. And I've started re-journaling again for the past few months just because there's a lot going on in my brain, as there is in everyone's brain. It's just how it is. But you've got to do that kind of decluttering of your mind every now and then. It's a really good method of just getting everything out and processed. And so you can kind of better understand where these feelings are coming from and know how to handle them when they do arise. I definitely use journaling as a method to kind of cope when things are getting a lot more hectic and busy. It just helps. It really does help just to write everything out that's stressing you out. Brain dumps are a godsend. I love doing a brain dump. Just get everything in my brain out. Because that's the thing that I think a lot of people in the freelance creative industries face, is there's just a lot of projects going on at once. There's a lot to juggle, especially if you've got uni projects as well. There can just be so many different thoughts spiraling around in your head, so just to write everything out, it helps so much. But another thing is to remember is these thoughts you're having, they're just thoughts, they're not facts. Remember that, because that is one thing that I've definitely learned through journaling, is I'll write all these things down and then I'll come back and I'll look at it a few months later and go, wow, these thoughts aren't true. I am being a successful self-employed entrepreneur. Why was I stressed so much? Like, I am doing it. So sometimes these thoughts just arise and you just need to get them out, and a journal is the perfect thing for it. There's loads of different ways to journal if you've never done it before, and I had never done it before. I wasn't even a kid who kept a diary when I was younger, so this was a very new process for me as a 25-year-old. There's lots of different ways. You can look at like journaling prompts. I think a lot of people do that for bullet journals and stuff like that, but I use mine as a very practical, free flow kind of journal where I'll just word vomit everything that's in my brain. Usually, because I'm a little bit dyslexic, I'll skip letters while I'm writing, and then I'm like, what was I even trying to spell? Just journal in a way that works for you. There's another form I also use as like a weekly review, where I go through these different kind of questions and I ask myself, what went well this week? What could have gone better? How did I manage my time? Yeah, those are just the kind of 3 questions I ask myself at the end of each week, and it just gives me a good overview of how my time was spent, how I was feeling. You know, it gives me a bit of a overview as to what still needs to be done for the next week, kind of just declutters it in that sense as well. Going back to that kind of when your brain starts to freak out, like I said earlier, I usually turn to journaling when I'm having a moment of panic. Normally those moments of panic come on when you are starting to burn out, so it's good to take that step to stop, write it all down, journal, you know, just stop for a minute and take some time to yourself, and also to then maybe lean on someone for support. Support is one of the main things I would say is vital in maintaining some form of balance. Having someone you can talk to about what's going on in your brain, what's going on in your life, someone who understands the pressures of what you're doing as your job and as your studies is so important. When I was in uni, I don't know which year this was, one of those hectic years, because uni's always hectic, isn't it? I went to my doctors and I said to them, I was like, look, I think I have depression because I've got X, Y, and Z going on, and it's just making me feel like absolute, you know, all the time. He kind of turned around to me and said, I don't think it's depression, I think you're just really stressed, because everything I was listing was just all this stuff I had to do and how it was making me feel so down. And he was like, yeah, no, you're just stressed. And I got referred to a counsellor within my uni, and I spoke to that counsellor on a weekly basis, or a fortnightly basis. He just like helped me get through the kind of the stress of 4th year, and kind of talked me through some methods of dealing with it. And I can't really remember what those methods were now. I feel like it was cognitive behaviour therapy, which everyone slates. But you know, it was just really nice to have someone listen and understand and kind of just listen. You know, it doesn't have to be a counsellor or a therapist. It can just be a close friend you really trust, a partner, a family member, anyone you feel like that can, you know, listen actively and not put you down or anything, because that's the last thing you need when you're trying to like get all this emotion out. You really want someone who's gonna be there for you. But if all else fails and there's nobody around to talk to, or you know, you just don't have someone you feel comfortable talking to about it, journaling is just as good as talking to someone. But I do recommend having someone to lean on for when you do need that extra support, especially because it's a crazy lifestyle we live in this world, this job. The creative industries are intense. Now I realise a lot of what I've been saying is talking about a lack of balance, and you're struggling with that, but I feel like most people who ask me how I maintain a work-life balance are struggling with that. That's why I've kind of said like things to help you process those emotions, and especially stress. Stress is just, it eats you up inside, so that's why you need to be able to try and let it out, but also to try and help out, like, you know, reduce the stress and maintain balance. a really good thing to do is be organized. I have never been an organized person. I've always struggled with being organized. I remember in one of my first year crits with my lecturer, I was scrambling around for this bit of paper. I'd lost it, and I think it was about something like, tell me some things you wish you'd done better this semester, and it was genuinely be more organized because I couldn't find this bit of paper. Half of my projects were really time rushed because I hadn't been organized with my time, and it's just a memory that has stuck in my head since was my first ever uni crit. I said I wanted to be more organised, and only now do I feel like I'm getting to a point where I am trying, but it's a skill you have to keep working on. You can't just gain it overnight. It's something you do need to constantly be trying to do and achieve and work on. So it takes time, funnily enough. But yeah, also I think the people who struggle the most with maintaining a life balance are people who have a lot going on in their lives. So to help reduce that stress and that burden, organizing everything you have to do is so important, because if you've got multiple projects, multiple jobs, you need to know when you're going to have time to do these things in order to maintain some form of balance. There's loads of different ways to be organized. There's diaries, there's calendar blocking, there's just massive to-do lists. Whatever you feel is the most effective for you, do it. I personally love calendar blocking at the moment. I've switched to using iCal just because it syncs up with my iPad, phone, MacBook, and I can just see it wherever I am, and it's easy to just flick up and see, right, what am I doing today? How I work out my weekly plan of when things are going to be done is based on my weekly review I did in my journal. I'll kind of assess what I got done the week before. I'll have done a brain dump as well, and I'll have thought of everything that's on my brain or on my mind, and I'll kind of schedule it in based off of that and around other events like classes and meetings that I might have already had set in stone. Using a system that works with you is super important, because you want something that's going to work with you, not against you. Like I said, having everything synced up between all my different devices means I can access it anywhere, and it just reduces that friction of knowing what's happening when. One thing I want to really stress is not having your calendar absolutely chock full. Leave space, leave gaps, leave time for things that might overrun or things have to get rescheduled, and also just leave time for yourself. So if we actually go back to self-care, because I only really just touched on how I thought it should be and how it wasn't working for me, how I now make it work for me is, obviously I take time away from my screens. I take time off entirely now that I have decluttered my brain and I can sit down and relax fully. I'll either, play a video game, or I'll maybe go for a walk and I'll listen to a nice wee album. Not a podcast, because a podcast will make me think of things and I'll be inspired to do stuff. I won't even write down video ideas or anything like that. I'm genuinely taking time away from everything. Now everyone practices self-care differently. Some people like to have a bath with a glass of wine and put on a face mask. I do that too. I'll maybe dye my hair and wear a face mask or something. Just really take time for yourself. Whatever makes you feel good, whichever makes you feel regenerated and kind of resets you, in order for when you go back to work, you feel refreshed and ready for it. Basically, self-care is just taking care of yourself. It's as simple as that. If there's anything you feel like you need to do to make you feel better, then that is when you need to do it. As long as it's not work, because that's the issue I have, is my work and my hobby crosses over quite a lot, so I need to make sure that I've got very separate spaces for these things. And I think one of my final kind of tips for maintaining balance in your life is learning how to say no. Now, it can be really hard when you're a student or a freelancer or any kind of form of creative, when all these cool interests and opportunities are presented to you and you just want to do them all because they all sound really cool and interesting and you just want to learn. You gotta learn how to say no to things that aren't gonna actually fulfill you in a good way. I mean, especially if you're juggling loads of things at once. But yeah, learning how to say no, it doesn't even have to be a firm never no. It can just be a not for now no. and you can think about doing it later when your schedule is a little bit less crazy. But it's just really hard to juggle loads of things at once, especially if you don't have the time. You just end up half-arsing these jobs and these projects. If you feel like you're already doing too much, I feel like that's a good time to review what you actually need to be doing and maybe learn to let go of some projects as well. My YouTube channel is one of those things that I really want to be doing, but it's not a priority for me, unfortunately. There's a lot of other things that have to come before that, which is my client work, it's my uni work, anything else in that categories. YouTube comes after. As much as it's my pride and joy, I love her so much. She does get put on the back burner quite a lot because it's something I can do only when I have time to. So that's why you'll notice my channel has dips of inactivity for a while and then it comes back, which is great for the algorithm, but It can also be if you've made your project overly big. So, I mean, uni projects you can't really drop half the time because they're like set in stone, but maybe you've chosen to do a film that's just way too out of your depth, or maybe you've chosen to use some methods that are way more time consuming than you considered. Try and scale that back and try and make it as manageable as possible within the time you have. It's not even just the time you have until the deadline, it's the time you have within your personal schedule. And if you really hone in on that and explain to your tutors why you've gone with this approach, they're usually quite understanding. It's a lot better to actually spend the right amount of time on something than go way too big in the concept and not be able to spend enough time on it. You know what I mean? For example, my 4th year was ridiculous. I think I submitted 20 projects. Most people submit 5. I submitted 20. I spread myself way too thin. I was way too ambitious, and when I look back on it, there's only a handful of projects I actually really was proud of. The rest were very sporadic, very not good, and I feel like that actually impacted my overall hand-in because I went too far with thinking that more was better, even though everyone tells you that less is more. I don't know why I had so many projects in the end. To be fair, I think a lot of it was, you start them in the beginning of the year and you're like, oh, I would really like to work on this, and you start doing some work for it, and then you go, actually, nah, I don't have time for this, and you drop it. So there was a lot of projects in that actually weren't complete, but still, it was a waste of time even doing them in the first place. So if I'd learned how to say no at the very beginning, could have avoided that situation. Oh, this mug is so big. And with that, I believe I have shared quite a lot of insight into how I feel like you could maintain a work-life balance. Obviously, this is all my own personal thoughts and opinions, but, I'm a working practitioner in the self-employed life of being a freelancer, and there's a lot of juggling involved in that. So I think I'm learning a lot more now that I have to do it on a regular basis. But it's something you're going to be constantly learning and constantly adjusting because we change, our lives change, jobs change, environments change, routines, habits, and like everything changes. So it's kind of hard to just have a set in stone, this is how you maintain a work-life balance. It's based on how your work life is and what you can do to aid that. Does that sound like a really off answer? I was just really interested in this topic. I've said before, I'm really open about talking about mental health and those sort of things on my channel. So if there's anything you ever want to know, please just get in touch. I'm all for it. I feel like speaking openly about these things also helps other creatives feel a lot better themselves, because I feel like majority of my classmates put on this really good facade of like having their, everything together. And I was the one always having mental breakdowns. So if I'm the one like openly speaking about it, I wonder how many of them aren't openly speaking about it. There's a lot of people that will put on this pretense everything's okay, but you can also say everything's not okay, and that's totally fine. I think there's strength in discussing these things and sharing these things. It's not something to be ashamed of at all. But I hope I was helpful enough in this discussion. And if you guys have any thoughts on how you guys maintain a work-life balance, is there anything you guys do differently from me? Any tips you guys have? Please do comment them down below. I love learning about people's like productivity methods and things like that. So yeah, on that note, I feel like I can end the video now. But if you are interested in seeing anything else from me, do hit subscribe. I upload vlogs about my studio practice, being a designer, a filmmaker, photographer, digital marketing student, just general content creator, personnel, thing, small business owner. I don't know, I've got a lot of titles. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, subscribe. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to know anything else, you know, comments down below, Instagram messages, wherever you feel is appropriate. And until next time, guys, I will see you later. Bye, everyone.